What's up, everybody? My name's James Gore. We're calling this Explore with Gore. I'm a county supervisor. Been doing this for about 12 years. This is my 12th year. Jon Stout, General Manager of the Sonoma County Airport, STS, Charles Schultz, all the names we give to this. I want to thank you for being with us here today.
Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Yeah, John, you and I mean, there's so much to talk about, but I just want to give people an idea that what we're going to do is we're first going to go into really current status of the airport, our current flights. We have a problem that I'll say a problem of success right now. We have a lot of different airlines that want in, which is something we've always wanted, but how you manage that and what the current status is. But then we're going to go back and talk about the origins of the airport, what it was in between the late 30s and into the early 2000s when service stopped, and what you did when you came in from 2002 onward to bring back this vibrancy to this regional hub. So I just want to acknowledge that your job is very complex. You manage the operations, also the flights that come in and everything. There's many issues we could talk about with the airport. There's people who are excited. There's noise issues for neighbors. There's all kinds of things we deal with, and the airport's in my district as a county supervisor, so I work a lot with you. But for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to have an exciting conversation about the activity and about the history, okay?
Okay. Sounds fun.
So, well, I'm going to stop flapping my gums, and I'm going to put it back over to you. So let's start. Let's say right now we've had a lot of announcements that came out recently, so can you work me through what we are doing right now and what we are seeing come alive in terms of flights over the next 3 to 6 months?
This year is going to be our best year ever. It was something that was not necessarily thought of 2 years ago that we'd be seeing this kind of success. And it really triggered with the announcement of Southwest. Southwest kind of, in their launch day in April, kind of took us to that next level. Yeah, Alaska and American have been great partners. Had some rough patches with Avelo, but Avelo was not really a big airline, and they had their own issues. Alaska's been a great partner for 19 years. They're a significant partner. They're doing up to 20 flights a day right now, so they've got a lot of service in Santa Rosa. But Southwest kind of got us on the map. Commenting to people after the launch effort by Southwest, we've never seen that kind of media coverage and that much excitement around air traffic at the airport. And everybody's like, you finally got a big carrier. You've got one of the top 3 carriers, depending on how you measure them. You know, they're the biggest carrier in the U.S. if you look at just domestic seats, but not necessarily all market. So that was a huge thing. And it was a slow build. It took us 15 years to get them here.
15 years.
And really, we were talking earlier and another thing, and what we were able to show them over the last 5 years, Southwest has lost market share in frequent flyers using their program in Santa Rosa.
Yeah.
5-6 years ago, they captured 30% of our passenger volume on their brand.
Yeah.
And in 25, it was 20%.
So you're able, well, let's get into the metrics in a little bit. So right now we have a longstanding anchor partner in Alaska, which also combines with Horizon, correct? Yes. And a lot of people know Sonoma County for that. And because we have these flights in and out of here, there's a lot of people who sign up for frequent flyers through Alaska because even though there isn't a lot of openings out going east of here, right? Like into Salt Lake City or into Denver, things like that, it's worth it because we can fly out of here or land here to go through Portland or Seattle or LAX, even if we want to get to other areas off of the West Coast. Then we also have American that came in really strong. American came in strong and has their Phoenix flight and also their Dallas flight and a couple others, but those really opened up, and they're also partners with Alaska, which works well for somebody like me who's a frequent flyer. And then my wife's family's from Texas, so we take these Dallas flights and these other things going out. Then we also had, for a while, United come in, and that was right about the time when we hit the pandemic. But United started here, the shortest, I think, flight path in the continental United States, which was from STS to SFO, right?
Yes.
And then onward.
Correct.
But then they also opened up, not a consistent every day, but a couple times a week out to Denver.
Correct.
That didn't last through the pandemic. We had a huge drop, obviously. And now we're at this position where now we've made announcements, but we've made announcements together that not only the Southwest flights, which is a huge thing, but now we have the most recent announcements of Delta, right?
Right.
And so talk about Delta real quick, where they're coming in at.
They came in pretty strong.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that competition and change of dynamics. They'll never admit it, but they've been kind of cool in our discussions with them about service to Salt Lake. But we got a call from them about 5 days after Alaska announced they're going to serve Salt Lake City. Hey, we want to start service this fall to Salt Lake City. And they announced it within 10 days of those first discussions that they're going to start service. It's going to make things a little tight.
Yeah.
We're getting almost full at the airport, but we will definitely make it work.
We're almost full in a couple of capacities, right? So in one degree, you got to manage parking, as you were just saying. Like now with all these things, it's not just the amount of flights that are in the air, which you have to manage as well, our maximum number of daily flights, which is an average, smoothed over the whole year, but you got to fit that. We have something called a general plan that dictates how many flights we can have coming in and out, but then you got to make sure there's enough parking for folks, because even though we have a smart train there, there's not a lot of parking at the smart train station and other areas. So you got to do a lot of transportation planning, right?
That's correct. So because of all these changes, we work very closely with our parking management firm, and they give us weekly schedule forecasts. So they look ahead 60, 90 days out, so we can start seeing where we're going to be full on the weekends, and we start looking at our overflow opportunities for parking.
Yeah.
We're lucky that we have a lot of streets around the terminal area, so we take over.
Well, we've expanded a lot of parking too recently, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you've brought in 3 or 4 different projects since I've been on the board of supervisors forward for enhanced development as well.
We built 500 spaces in 2019, so that really helped. Thank God we have those right now. And we built an overflow lot for rental cars and employees. That'll become a customer overflow lot here in July. And we'll be moving all the rental cars and employees to different locations to make it more convenient for the customers. But yeah, we're now starting to have to look at off-airport in and around the business park. This fall, we're going to peak with our daily flights, around 30 departures a day with everything happening on peak days. But we may be short as many as 400 to 425 spaces a day.
There you go. Well, you want to use Sonoma County Airport, you got to be able to work with us, but at the same time, we know that people love to fly in and out of this airport. As we mentioned also is that we have growing pains. We deal with, as I've mentioned before, is complaints are really up in certain areas because of flight path changes. That's a whole thing that we've been working on, and we have some plans to continue to address that over the coming year. But for the purposes of the actual hub, this beating hub in Sonoma County, I want to thank you and the team. It's been amazing for me to learn how this works because even though I represent the area, I really learn from you, and I try to support what the plan is and bring up issues and how we do neighborhood compatibility and how do we get the right number of flights. But for people who don't know, these airlines, as you've taught me over the years, they're not just competing for dollars on flights. The reason that we have at some point, like right now, this kind of feeding frenzy with other airlines coming in and, well, for instance, Alaska announces Salt Lake City, which we've been trying to get them to do for 10 plus years. But when they finally do, Delta comes in, it's because they don't want to lose frequent flyers. That's the key thing. They don't mind. It's one thing to lose a flight here and there, but to lose a customer that could be for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So when we have people switch over to Alaska and then American comes in and they're a partner, but then United comes in because they don't want all of their folks who live in Santa Rosa who are willing to drive to SFO to instead go down and switch up to American and to Alaska. And then Southwest comes and they say, as you say, you're like, hey, I can show you, you've lost 50,000, frequent flyer members because you track this data. It's really an interesting thing. And so I'll just say from my perspective, I tell people that the goal is not always more, it's better.
Correct.
It's also better in the sense that we want the airlines that are consistent, not, we've had airlines that have come in the past with old jets that are 2 to 3 times louder than the ones that we deal with updated equipment, correct?
Are you talking about our Allegiant experiment?
Yes. Yeah. That was a fun one.
Yes, it was.
Also, for people who don't know, is that even though we manage through the airport, and Jon is the general manager and the board of supervisors as his board, we manage the land use around that area, what gets built in the airport park. We make sure that things don't get built within the flight path area. There has to be security issues that Jon brings forward. But there's a whole different thing out there, which is people think that we own and regulate the air. So if you're on state highways or 101, you're going to have the CHP really manning the streets. In this sense, when we deal with complaints that come in, it's a very weird situation because we have to work with the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, right?
Yes.
And they dictate a lot of the operations of who flies, when they fly, what are the rules of the air. Is that correct?
Rules of the air and who can and who can't use the airport.
Yeah. Jon, let's go back. We've taken some time to talk about the current status. But before we go too far back, I want you to share a great anecdote, a story. Tell me about a Purple Heart.
So one of the cool things that has happened over time at the airport, one of our staff around 2008, 2009, they found a Purple Heart laying on the floor near bag claim.
Mm-hmm.
And they picked it up. It's like, well, somebody really needs this. It shouldn't be lost.
Mm-hmm.
So we started using our social media platform to reach out and say, we found this. We reached out to the Purple Heart Association to help see, because they're all serial numbered. So we wanted to get it reunited with the family. Luckily, the media picked up on it. It became a news story in the Bay Area. It was our largest ever social media event with over 100,000 views on Facebook. And we were able to get it back to the family, and they were so appreciative that they got it back.
That's beautiful.
So,
well, let's expound upon that, because the reason bringing it up is that it is a story, but it doesn't just operate in itself. It's connected with the story of our services, the military here with this airport over time. And in current day, you've been working and we've connected up with these groups, Claudio and others who run the honor flights, which take veterans to Washington, D.C. to go with camaraderie and people who can't get out. And a lot of times older veterans, World War II and Korean War and others like that, and with high disability, and take them out with staffing and professional nurses and medical care, and get them out to D.C. to be able to connect with the monuments, the museums, everything. It's a beautiful thing if you ever look up Sonoma County honor flights, and please think about supporting, which is just this cool thing. But if you go back, really, the inception of this airport is also with the military. Can you talk about the 1930s when this all started, this story started?
So in the late 30s, 1939, the county actually purchased about 300 acres of land with the intent to build an airport, which that effort got underway.
Did you lead that effort?
Sure.
Oh,
yeah.
Bad joke. Old joke. Yeah.
I got enough gray
What were
hair.
you doing it? Yeah, well, me too. Keep going. Sorry.
But once the war started, the military and the government came in and took it over, expanded it to roughly 10,000 acres.
What size is it now?
We're about 1,200.
Yeah. So think about that, 10,000 acres.
So it was a pretty big operation, essentially up to the railroad tracks, fairly wide along Airport Boulevard, up to 10,000 troops on the airport. And they did that primary flight instruction for fighter pilots. And there's pictures of the airport where they camouflage the runways, and it's a very weird thing, but it was a huge activity, very good in the support of the war effort. And at the conclusion of the war, it reverted back to the airport and county in 1947.
Okay. So in 1947, at that point, there was an effort by certain individuals to start commercial flights at that time. What did commercial flights look like in the 40s and in the 50s and in the early 60s?
Well, in the 40s, it was later 40s, so it was like 6, 8-seater aircraft, DC-3s. So it wasn't, it was back in the weird days of flying, a little more informal, a little fancier.
Yeah.
And it was not necessarily the best service, but it was more of they call them dairy runs.
Yeah.
So it'd stop in Monterey, Santa
Kind of like
Barbara,
drop off the milk
LA.
at each person's.
Yep.
Yeah.
A little bit more like a bus route.
Okay.
So you have stops along the way, and eventually you'll get to your final destination. Don't remember what the fares were, but they even went up to the north and did routes up to Arcata.
Okay.
And it was kind of like that through the 40s, 50s, and early 60s. In the 70s, after deregulation, you started seeing the air cows and PSA
When you say deregulation, for those not thick on U.S. history, we're talking about the deregulation. So basically, the unmilitarization of the airline industry, right?
Correct.
All of a sudden, there was this opening for private and for commercial flights,
The government
much more than
controlled it
ever
all.
existed, right?
That happened in 1978, and then the airlines.
Year I
There was
was
a
born.
whole bunch of airlines that started in the late 70s and started all kinds of new things. And by the late 80s, Sonoma County had quite a bit of service. We had American, we had United. For a while, we had Reno Air. So
this is in the late 80s we're
Yes.
talking about right now, and which is funny because when we sat down, I grew up in Hillsburg, Cloverdale, Dry Creek, kind of Santa Rosa, and at different times in my life, and I remember taking flights, and they weren't crazy expensive. It was kind of a simpler time, as we say. They weren't big planes, but we got up to Seattle. We got up to the San Juan Islands connected through Seattle, did Portland, see family, things like that every once in a while. And so we're talking about the 80s now. So let's just kind of keep going forward, because as I know it, you had a time where everything shut down. The industry went away. And what precipitated that?
it probably started when American pulled out. So they were going to San Jose. And about the time they started closing down the San Jose hub is when that service started to decline. There started to be getting issues with United and their unions because the flights from Santa Rosa were overflying a big hub. We were overflying San Francisco to go to L.A., and it's like, you can't do that. We need to. So there's a host of issues, and in 2001, United announced we're going to pull out. It had nothing to do with 9/11. They announced it before that event occurred. And in October 2001, we were without service. So,
what was service like before that? What was service like in the 90s, late 90s into 2001? Was it active? Was it full in terms of the flights that we have? Like when we're talking about hitting an average flight limit?
To put it in comparative purposes, we get more in a month now than we got in a year in the 90s.
Okay.
I think
That's fair.
best month, our year was about 52,000 passengers.
Gotcha. And now?
Now our best month is like 78,000.
Yeah. So, okay, all of a sudden, this guy named Jon Stout gets hired, and you get hired for a job at an airport that has no commercial flights, but it has active use from fixed wing operators, individuals, things like that, people who have. So what did you apply for? What were you doing before, and what did you apply for?
I applied to be the airport manager.
Yeah.
I was working at an airport in Michigan as a general aviation airport manager. But I grew up in Sonoma County and I wanted to come back. So it's like, hey, let's give it a try.
Cool.
Hometown's got a job opening. Let's see if it works. And the directive at the time, Paul Kelly was on the board. He was very active in that recruitment. And he's like, we need air service back, and that's going to be your primary goal. Help us get air service.
I'm glad you say that. I saw Paul the other day, and I told him thank you. He really, at a time when this was all gone, he was the supervisor in my seat before McGuire. Yeah, Paul Kelly. He was in there for 16 years, and I was talking to him because I'm almost done with my 12th year and moving off the board, and that's one of the biggest things I thanked him for, was working his butt off with you to get that done. So let's diverge a little bit, okay? We've talked about the current status. We've talked about what got us here, and there's so many details of what we could talk about with nuance within it. But I want to talk about some of the things, or I want to hear from you that are the interesting things we've learned about the airport over the years. Like number one, at one point we were looking at moving in some housing solutions over there, and housing for homelessness and other things. And we were looking at sites, and I had businesses who were telling me, we don't want a homeless site here. And I had people who say, we don't want a homeless site here, but we have to figure out where to do this stuff. But all of a sudden this huge thing came up, which was like, oh, we can't. Why? Oh, because we have ordinance. What do you mean? Like an ordinance like I write at the Board of Supervisors? No, ordinance as in ammunition, mustard gas, bombs, all these other things. What's under the ground out there in all that place? Why do we have to be so careful when we have new development out there and go digging?
Well, as you know, it was a military base, and the military was not always the best in disposing of their surplus materials. So there are certain parts of the airport where there are munitions underground. It's small arms, so it's not it's not like ordnance of a artillery shell or anything like that. 50 caliber shells or less, so pistols and rifles. But because of some of the training during the war, they were referring back to World War I with training for mustard gas, so practice for gas masks.
Yeah.
They'd create a pit. They'd do glass ampules with mustard gas. They'd break them and, okay, put on your gas mask.
Yeah.
It wasn't large vials. They weren't in a artillery shell. It was just an ampule, but they're in glass.
Yeah.
So the problem is not all of them broke when they set them off, and they just buried the hole. So there's a field that was used by the sheriff for the gardening. It's generally in that area.
Gardening?
Yeah, the sheriff's garden.
Do they grow mustard?
Not that I'm aware
in
of.
the mustard gas ampule?
Yeah, that's how they get so yellow.
Okay. So let's go into this a little bit, because that's kind of, once again, I'm using these stories not as just like throwing an anecdote, but as a segue on all of them, because there's a lot of uses at the airport other than just flights. People think about that. But also we have a very active system of CAL FIRE at the airport.
Yes.
Right? And training runs, and also where they use to fill up and utilize it year round, but they're big users, and there's training and all these other things. And then there's specific private companies that come in and they lease out spaces to teach people helicopter. Sometimes we have to deal with that, where the helicopters are flying in the ravines and buzzing people's houses, and it's causing like chaos. And we have to go tell these, tell folks, hey, come on, bring it in line, help us. Also, it's considered like a public facility or zoning. So we've had at times the sheriff's office with the SWAT teams out there doing training, right? On other sides, like I've worked with you as we've looked at the area, and one of the biggest things we do is that when properties come on the market, we try to buy properties that would have an incompatible use with the airport anyways. So we have a certain amount of money that we put over to the side. We can't pay more than something's worth. We're government. But at the same time, we purchase properties and we make sure that there's a big enough area, a buffer area, so that it doesn't negatively impact flights. One of the things, though, for me that's been most interesting in looking with you is that we're at a place with this airport where now that we've had an upgrade to the facility, we have a new terminal, you've upgraded the parking. The biggest effort was upgrading in 2012 and 2013 the runway, right?
Correct.
So now you have those infrastructure pieces in place. We've upgraded with other monies, Airport Boulevard and others, and we have the smart train station. So all this stuff is happening. What's the next? What's the thing that is next? Is it more infrastructure, or is it more fine tuning our system right now?
It's a little bit of both. So we do have a current project underway right now. We're expanding the airline parking apron. We currently have 4 parking spots for the airline aircraft. And that project started about 2 years ago in construction, and we'll be getting into the next phase here later this month. And we should have 6 spaces by April 1st. So that'll solve some of our congestion around the aircraft parking. I don't know if you've had those lucky days where Murphy shows up and helps the airlines in their planning, where a plane shows up early, a plane's late, and now there's too many planes for the spots, and you get to sit out on the taxiway while they move the others. That'll help with that effort. So that's underway. And then we'll have a nice covered walkway to the farthest spot. So you won't have to do the rain dash in the wintertime. The next area is the parking. We will be releasing a request for qualifications to develop a rental car facility, and that should be starting construction about 24 to 36 months. We're also looking at building additional parking. Going back to that vehicle parking thing, we want to make sure when you show up, we have a space for you that's convenient and not too problematic.
What percentage of the passengers who come to STS park? Do you know that?
It's
I'm
higher
just
than
going to
you
start throwing questions
think
at you.
because of just the expanse of the county and where we pull customers from.
Yeah.
It's not that Smart is a great partner.
Well, once again, but it's down the street. It's great, but you still, the connector from Smart to the airport still requires a little bit of effort.
There's that part, and Smart doesn't run during all of our hours. So our
No.
first morning flights were not connected, and our last flights of the day from 10 to midnight were not connected. So about 20% of our flights don't connect to Smart.
Which is one of the reasons that what used to be called Airport Express, Sonoma County Airport Express, which is now Groom Transportation, is still very active, even though we have all this other transportation out there.
It's probably about 40% of our passengers are driving themselves.
Okay. And where do we pull people from?
We pull people
Not
from
just Sonoma County, from Napa,
County,
Mendo North.
We pull from Humboldt,
Yeah, right.
Lake County, Marin County.
I know people who come down from Marin and come up north instead of going south.
Yeah, so San Rafael up to Arcata.
Okay. Push that aside. I want to talk about a couple other things, which is I've sat down with you at different times where we've looked at what are the destinations that we want to add. And usually if you want to add something, it's not just because you want to do it, it's where your people already go.
Correct.
So I've always been impressed with the analysis that comes back that says, hey, one of the top 3 destinations that we could get is actually Mexico and Guadalajara.
Yes.
Hawaii. These are stretch goals because when we think about the continental United States, I mean, we're in a position right now where we did have a Minneapolis flight.
Yes.
Just probably, is that our longest flight?
That is our longest flight.
Right, that we've had. What is the likelihood of getting either cart services, as they call it, for bringing customs out and getting an international flight, which would be a Mexico flight? And what's the likelihood of Hawaii?
I would say right now, customs is probably a really hard sell right now.
Yeah.
Given the political climate and things going on, they're talking about pulling customs out of SFO.
Yep.
But we've been trying to get customs at the airport for at least 10 years.
Yep.
We have enough local users that need it for private aviation on a call-out basis that we can't get even if you do
Which they do already. They will come out on a call-out basis.
They will not.
Yeah,
even
right.
though there's a program under Customs and Border Patrol where you can pay for it.
Yeah.
We have operators willing to pay for it, and we've run the numbers. It would be $2,000 a call-out.
Yeah.
And they said, nope,
Yeah,
we don't want to serve it.
Yeah.
So Mexico is probably not very likely, even though it's in our top 3 markets. We also have a lot of beach destinations in Mexico people want to go to.
And ironically, a lot of those flights, what happens is they go to LAX and then fly out of there. They go to San Diego and fly out of there, or they're going to go down to Phoenix and fly out of there.
Yes.
Right? So
Hawaii, there's over 300,000 people a year leaving our market area every year going to Honolulu. If we can find the right aircraft and operator, there's a high probability.
Yeah.
We haven't found that right mix just yet, but we're keeping looking because that's one of those markets where everybody asks. The next one would be Chicago. Chicago is a huge market, and it's another great connection point between United and American. But now the other piece we want to build on is Southwest and Denver.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know, too, is once again, and I say this as somebody who didn't know and who's learned a lot more, is that a lot of these airlines that we talk about are operating, we're talking about big airlines that own big hubs. Like Delta is really powerful, and Salt Lake City, you go and all the flights are there. You go to, same thing with Atlanta, right? If you go to, Seattle or SeaTac, you see Alaska's everywhere. You go to hubs that are American hubs. One of the interesting things about Southwest, as we're talking about, is I've seen them that they have the world that everybody knows, which is they're in all the big airports, but they're very active in these other regional airports. You see a lot of flights that go into places like Fresno. You see a lot of Southwest flights that go into Austin, San Diego. So it seems like there's a fit for Sonoma County where they have other destinations that are not just us waiting in queue to get one of the last flights into Chicago or something like that. Is that one way it works?
It is. So what the airlines are doing, they're not doing small airport to small airport, so point to point.
Yeah.
They want to feed their networks and give that value to their frequent flyer. Because we're a world-class destination, we've got great demographics, and on the other side, we have all those customers of theirs want to come here. Eventually, they're going to start connecting more dots. They have a lot of big markets that they serve that they could serve to Santa Rosa and add another connecting point, Dallas Love Field or
Hobby.
So they're going to see how it goes. We keep in touch with all of our partners and see where they're going to keep track of all the people that connect.
When you had the ribbon cutting, and John, you are good at cutting a ribbon. Like I will say, I told somebody recently is like when we did this terminal, I think I at about 4 or 5 ribbons. I was like, we had the corner beam going in, the first time the concrete goes in, then when but it's what your job is too. Yeah. Your job is from the board is to make sure that it's not just an infrastructure hub, but it's a hub where people know what's going on, and we need to announce those things. And it's amazing to me how many people are interested in this. As I said before, and I'll just note this for a minute because I might have some people watching who are frustrated that we're talking all good and joyful about the airport because they are heavily impacted by the airport. They either live in a neighborhood where there's been existing a lot of noise, or they're in an area where there's been this new flight path, this situation where now we have planes that are banking under 1,000 feet. They're wasting fuel, but they're really loud and all the complex changes. And I just want people to know that the commitment is there, and we have a partnership that we're following up on with neighbors and us and cities. We've changed the Aviation Commission to add a couple extra spots to city members through the mayors and council members so that they can weigh in on the Aviation Commission. There's a lot of this stuff that's going on. But for me, if I think about really the future, I have to ask this kind of almost harebrained question, which is, what's the huge disruptions that are out there? I mean, there's already people who talk about, the new iteration of drone flight, of individual flights, of what the FAA is going to have to deal with in the future outside of the existing system that we think like, it's just going to be like, same kind of planes, nicer, other things. But what are some of the technologies out there or the things that could disrupt or make flight a lot easier for people that don't use hubs as much? What do you see?
There's a couple of different things out there. There's the advanced air mobility aircraft, which is 46 seats. They're full electric, and they're supposed to do those short hops. So they've talked about like Santa Rosa SFO. They've talked about it Santa Rosa to Napa, Santa Rosa to Sacramento, and where those will operate. They're still trying to figure that out. They're just starting to roll out into markets. They've got them in New York and a couple other places around the country, but they haven't really grown yet. Depending on how those grow, they want it to be like a Uber Black in terms of pricing and convenience. But where they operate is not yet defined, not yet determined. And they still may be electric, but they will have blades. Usually the blades are the noisiest part on those aircraft. So you won't have the engine noise, but you're going to hear that propeller. They're going to fly lower. So that'll create issues with what's going on with neighborhood impacts. Okay. But it could be a huge disruptor in how people move. It's kind of the intro to the Jetsons. Didn't you ever want one of those?
That's exactly what I'm asking, right?
Those things.
Is once you're just rolling around and not even using an airport anymore.
Right.
Which is a unique thing. John, as we kind of pull this to the finish line, and I want to thank you for your time here, I want to hit 3 things. Number 1 is parking, because it's worth it. We've made a change and see where we're at and where we're going. Number 2 is kind of this discussion about inbound and outbound, how you choose flights and how many people actually are looking to get out of here, who live here and go to places, versus how many people are looking to come here either for business or tourism. Then the final thing is economic impact, because I think we need to hit that. So jump in. Let's talk about the parking. What change did you make recently, and what are we looking at?
So we just did a new contract with a parking management company, and they also have a tech arm. And as part of that, they've been rolling out license plate recognition software. So instead of the ticket spitters, those annoying things where you take the ticket and you go in and try and get it to work on the way out, they just scan your license plates and get a picture of the car, and they compare that at the end. So on our website, you go create an account. So if you're a frequent traveler at the airport, once you create the account, link it to your car and a payment method.
That's for short-term or long-term parking?
Any of our lots.
Okay.
You just pull up, the gate arm goes up, you go in, and when you leave, you pull up to the gate. The screen will say, "Thank you for parking and using Sonoma County Airport," and tell you your total. You'll get a text of your receipt, and you don't have to do anything.
And for people who don't sign up?
You can stop at the parking booth and pay at the booth, or you can scan a QR code at the exit and pay by credit card in your car.
Good. Thank you. Convenient. As you said, some people worry about Big Brother. Is that true?
They do. We've started using this in the last week, and the feedback has been extremely positive. Only a few people concerned about it. But again, it's not maintained beyond 30 days, so everything goes away. It's not part of that flock camera system, so
you
no
won't know
there.
when James Gore snuck away to Mexico during.
No, you will not.
Yeah.
Even though you do that every week, we've got it down.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Okay. Second thing is we were talking about all these flights and these destinations, and I was really speaking about it from a perspective of Sonoma County residents, which is what I hear from mostly. Talk about the inflow, the people who want to be here. You mentioned us being a world-class destination. One of our big partners with the airport is Sonoma County Tourism. Mm-hmm. We also work heavily with the chambers and others to try and prioritize and get folks here, not only for tourism, but business groups, retreats, things like that, and just people doing regular business.
We have a very large population, Sonoma County being almost 500,000. So there's enough people here to support air service regardless of our destination status. But it's working out about 45% of our traffic is the local user. 45%. And it's about 55% inbound traffic. And as we improve those eastbound connections to those other hubs, the Delta hub in Salt Lake and more growth on Southwest and their hubs, that brings more of their frequent flyers and their travel partners into Sonoma County. It also helps tourism with these group meetings for midweek stuff.
Yeah.
They need to get here, and we're getting to that critical mass on the flights where we may grow to a 60-40 split, 60% inbound, 40% outbound.
Okay.
So get a little more to where our destination status matches.
Especially smoothing out the weekend tourist travel with weekday business travel, retreats, other things. That's one thing that we have not rebounded from since COVID with Zoom and all the other stuff. So, okay, so this is also a thriving hub of commerce. There's kind of gross economic studies. When I say gross, I do not mean yucky. I mean like gross revenue or economic activity versus net. Tell us what the most recent study did and what we're looking at now.
So in 2021, we did a study on our economic impact, which is a while ago. That was looking at 10, 11 flights a day, and it was $278 million a year in economic impact, supporting almost 1,700 jobs in the region. So pretty significant impact and engine, if you will, for the county. We looked at what percent of the overall economy the airport represents. We're almost 1% of the Sonoma County economy that we drive just from the airport. And it's not a linear thing on economic impact. So now that we're at 20 flights a day, it's not a $500 million. It's probably in the $300 to $350 million. But it's definitely growing, and we're going to be doing a new economic study this fall. Okay. So we'll get better numbers, and we're over 500 employees working at the airport now. 500
employees.
Alaska Airlines has 75 by themselves.
Well, and so we have airline employees, we have county employees, we have emergency management people who service the airport as well, if there's emergencies and things like that. We have companies like Sonoma Jet Center, VineJet, Kaiser that operate out of there too. We have the individuals who rent some of the old buildings out there and fly their fixed wing stuff in and out. So, yeah, crazy, John. I want to thank you sincerely. A lot of people ask about the airport. People love the airport. We've talked about it, and I'll mention it again, that there's always going to be impacts that we have to mitigate, as we say in government, which means there's going to be, negative noise. There's going to be frustrations. We have to keep improving those things. That's an utmost goal of ours. Sometimes you've been villainized, or I have, for not fixing that stuff. I say that actually not with chagrin, because people's lives are negatively impacted. When you're getting blown out and you live in a beautiful place in Sonoma County, or you're in a neighborhood in Windsor or a neighborhood in Sebastopol now that's getting blown out all the time, it hugely negatively impacts your life. And so it is up to us to do that and not look the other way. I look forward to working with you on those improvements. We called, some would say called out, but we really called in the FAA recently to work with us, and we have some options. So I just want to thank everybody if you listened in. I want to thank you for using the airport. I want to thank you for making the airport utilizable and always bringing us good plans. Pleasure talking to you today. Anything you want to end with?
No, thank you, and just continue to support the airport. We appreciate the support of the board and the community. And there's generally a lot of positive response to all these changes in service, because it was one of those big selling points to Southwest. 20 people in a room, everybody in the room goes, we don't want to drive to San Francisco. Yeah. You're improving my quality of life, so I don't have to drive to San Francisco.
Well, that's why their COO came out and was not just there to give a speech, but hung out, spent time, and it was an impression. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.